begin. Test positivity rates is a very important factor that tells us how grim the situation is becoming. Very simply put, it tells us that out of 100 tests in any one area, how many are showing up positive. We're showing you a map right now, just giving you an idea of how cases have been behaving in top metros. And so far, the infections of COVID-19 and what is very clearly a third wave fueled by the Omicron variant seem to be flourishing the most in top cities. We don't even know what the full picture is, frankly, in rural areas because testing rates are relatively lower. So let's just take you through what's happening tonight. Mumbai, 20,000 cases in the last 24 hours. Delhi, over 15,000 cases. Chennai has seen 2,481 cases, but the positivity rate has gone from 0.9% to 6.5%. Bengaluru has seen the positivity rate jump from about 0.5% to 3.17%. So we're seeing the spikes continuing. Now, the question is, can our capacities stay up, catch up and prepare for what's coming? To speak on this, I'm joined today by Sushant Kinra. He is Chief Operating Officer at Suburban Diagnostics. Dr. Manchanda, Managing Director of Dr. Lal PathLabs, is with us on the show. Dr. Velumani, creator of Thyrocare, also joins us to give us perspective on what's going on. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for speaking with us this evening on the India development debate. Dr. Manchanda, let me begin by getting your overview on the situation. Needless to say, the demand for RT-PCR tests and rapid action tests have jumped in the last few days. Can you give us some perspective of how high this rise has been and how you are coping with this?
Yeah, good evening. We have seen a pattern where there was a steady rise in number of tests starting first week of December, but the rise was not that much. But what we have seen in the last 6 months has been exponential rise in testing. But I must say that it is still lower than what we saw during peak of second wave. During that time, most labs in the country really built up capacities. And if I do a math for our setup, we virtually raised capacity to the extent of 10 times what we were doing, let's say, in 2020. So far, the rise has been very, very fast in the last 5-6 days, but it is still below the peak volume that we had experienced in wave 2.
Mr. Kinra, would you also echo that trend that the rise has been very sharp, especially in the last 1 week or so? But are people not testing as much as before? Because the general sense seems to be that this is a mild thing. Why go through the whole process? Remember, we also have the aid of home test kits right now, which a lot of people seem to be using.
Yeah, I think so. I echo the sentiments of home. Is that I think in Mumbai, for example, the steep has been really fast. I think in the wave 2, what we saw, of course, we've not reached that volume as of now, so that's a good part. But the steep, what we have seen last 1 week, at least we did not observe this in Mumbai. But I think we are very well prepared, at least this time, as compared to second wave, even better than first wave, of course. Now we know that where this is trending. But in general, I think if the speed continues, definitely there will be some challenges in the testing. As of now, I would say that it's manageable at this point in time. And of course, I mean, on the other side, on the home testing also is one factor which is probably helping the overall industry. But in general, I think this time there is less resistance to testing as compared to last year. I think this time people know that testing is very important. This is the way to really control and trace and tracking of the sample. So I think I would suggest, or at least I feel that people are more open to testing this time. That's our feeling at this point in time.
Dr. Velumani, if you look at the pace at which the infections have risen and the number of tests, because now what is happening is when you're getting the daily numbers from major metros, you're also getting a sense of the number of tests that have been conducted. The sense is that we're still conducting fewer tests, even though the test positivity rate is so high. Is that accurate in your view?
In my personal view, there is no dearth of capacity in the laboratories as it stands today. As the earlier two speakers said, we are yet to see the peak which we saw in the second wave. And this time you have a lot of home testing kits also around. And if I look at the numbers, my mind says actual numbers should be one more zero. Because we are not testing, all are not testing. The testing has undergone a lot of changes. The first wave, no one was willing to test, because otherwise the municipal authorities will harass. In the second wave, it looked like, okay, let us get tested because municipality understands and we will have to get quarantined at home. Now I think people have understood this is just a week. I should keep silent, quarantine. Things will be all right. So in my personal opinion, testing is not forced upon and testing is not seen as must, because of which the testing is not done adequate. If I look at the speed at which, or hear and read at which, the speed at which this virus is progressing, infecting, the numbers should have been much, much more. But having said that, I have a reason to believe that this will peak somewhere by 15th of January, and it will soon, by end of January, this will be over. This is my wish and a personal opinion.
So a big statement there saying that the actual numbers are with an additional zero. That means if I look at it for Mumbai, you're saying instead of 20,000, it's probably 200,000 cases that are taking place. Dr. Om, I want your take on the importance of testing right now, because this is the chatter and the conversation among people. If they're coming down with a cold or a mild flu, they're preferring to wait it out for 2 or 3 days with the assumption that this is not really a dangerous viral or a dangerous variant. I may as well ride it through and see what happens and keep myself quarantined in any case. Do you think that that's the kind of trend you're observing, and what do you make of that outlook?
Yeah, I think we are seeing the same trend, what Dr. Velumani just mentioned about, because there are multiple options available to patients these days. I think the first is obviously wait it out because people are seeing some mild symptoms. Second is they want to do rapid antigen test, which is at home. And then if the situation demands, then they go for RT-PCR. I think most labs, especially a model like us, which is a centralized lab model, we normally go for RT-PCR tests. We are not actually doing rapid antigen because there are a lot of false negative results you get in that. So given these multiple options, people are adopting a staged approach where they wait and watch, and then they go for at-home test, and then finally they go for RT-PCR. And this time we are also seeing a lot of travel-related testing, which was not there last time, both at arrivals as well as departure. And I think Sushant can talk more about that, because in Mumbai we do this rapid PCR test. So given these multiple options, patients are opting for whatever the situation demands. So it's not only just RT-PCR test which is available today.
Yeah, absolutely. There are more and more varieties of tests being available. But Mr. Kinra, what is the future of testing that you see evolving with this situation? Most experts believe that Omicron is unlikely to be the last variant. We're now at the stage of the pandemic, I would say mentally, that we're trying to find ways of getting on with our lives, right? So even if someone's unwell or has tested positive, you think that, okay, in a week, we'll test again, and then, we'll get on with whatever our programs were. Rapid antigen tests are being used to allow people into offices and schools in some places. Do you see that evolution growing even more? And aren't we crying out now for cheaper, faster, and more widely available tests so that we can truly move on?
Oh, absolutely. I think there is no doubt about it that probably this virus will remain with us for a very, very long time. And obviously, you need to, and I think there is also going to be a evolution in the technology. I seriously believe, and I think that will happen is mostly rapid tests will, take precedence over the gold standard of RT-PCR. We've seen a lot of evolution in the last 2 years. In the last 2 years, now we have 2 or 3 or rather 5 different technologies who can actually give results really fast. I think somewhere down the line, it will happen. A point of care testing will go up. Maybe, home care kits will be much, much better as we move along. The antigen testing, which has a lot of false negativity, will also improve from a technology perspective. Having said that, there will always be a need for a centralized testing. And I think that's what it is. Like you can look at glucose, for example. You have a centralized testing and you also have a glucometer. You can do it at home. So probably somewhere down the line, that's how it should evolve. I hope that this virus goes away soon. We always thought that Omicron could be a last variant, but you never know. But in any case, I think even if it stays, I think the testing will evolve for sure. It'll be definitely faster than what it is today. That's what I believe.
Yeah, Dr. Velumani, in terms of the requirements of testing that we have right now, I mean, there are concerns for at-home testing. You have a situation where someone may be coming to collect your sample who has, one way or the other been exposed to a lot of people who could be COVID positive. Do you think that's also leading to a reduction in testing?
Actually, within 2 years, we have evolved a lot. In the April 2020, the man was donning the what is known as protection kit, customer wearing protection kit. And if you want to get discharged, you have to test 2 times negative by RT-PCR. This is how we started. And then came wave 2, where it was a lung aggressive variant. Except that, oxygen need, the virus otherwise was not at all too much to be worried about. In this second wave, third wave, it's not on lungs. So even if, by any chance, if the Omicron is as hungry as the Delta on lungs, I don't think we would have been able to manage. So it is not the lockdown which is saving us. Let us be very honest about it. It is the virus itself is probably very, very mild. Having said that, Omicron has come to complete the vaccination is my personal opinion. Government may take its own time. This is a free vaccination, and by end of January and in mid-February, you will find 99% of the people vaccinated by vaccine itself. So if you ask me, reagents are very cheap. Today, RT-PCR is not costly. Let's put it that way. Second thing is, reliability-wise, RT-PCR continues to remain, and it will always remain. Fast RT-PCR will not be able to satisfy. So there will be a kind of adjustments on needs and speed and the quality. But having said that, COVID PCR will not be a revenue for big laboratories in the coming years. This is my perception.
Dr. Om, we are speaking today when cases have increased massively, but all of you all have said that testing is still not at the Delta peak levels. But let's project to 10 days from now and look at the pace at which cases are increasing. Do you think that the industry and you are prepared for the demand that is going to come in for testing? Are you already seeing delays in giving tests or taking appointments for people? Are they getting their tests as fast as earlier?
I think it's a great question, and many of us are staring at those challenges as well. Let's hope we don't get into that situation. In fact, I'm seeing challenges on 3 fronts. Number one is a lot of demand actually has shifted to home collections, not only for COVID testing, but even for non-COVID testing also. patients are preferring for phlebotomists to come home and collect samples. And that's adding to the pressure. Second is it's becoming very difficult for labs to plan for kind of demand, a sudden surge in demand that we have seen in the last 6-7 days. And also type of kits we need to order, because now there are a lot of kits which are available. In wave 2, we saw a different kind of test going up, which we call COVID allied test. This time, COVID allied tests are very, very low because hospitalizations are very less. So there is a bit of a material planning challenge as well. And I think the third biggest challenge that I'm seeing is of manpower. We saw less number of infections in our staff last time. And I think this time, because the transmissibility of the virus is so high, nobody is being spared. And I'm seeing that actually could become a challenge. As of now, we are able to manage. If situation continues the way it is, next week, 10 days could be challenging. But however, as Dr. Velumani said, that since the positivity rate also is shooting up very sharp, if that moves up sharp, so hopefully the peak will also come faster and decline also very fast. So technically speaking, my sense is that this whole pressure may not last longer as compared to what we saw in wave.
Well, that is everyone's hope. The projections of when we'll hit that peak and start plateauing vary. Like Dr. Velumani says, 15 Jan, some say mid-Feb. So we'll have to see on that. But Mr. Kinra, I want to get your take on the challenges going up, because what Dr. Om is saying is actually echoing a conversation I had yesterday on the show with top doctors who were talking about the huge clutch of medical professionals testing positive. And while they're not very serious symptoms in most cases, they just can't go out and treat patients then. And then it creates a shortage of medical help. Is that also a challenge that you see yourself facing possibly in the next few days?
So far, not that much, but definitely we are closely observing this part. And needless to say, I think we are trying to, create a backup of a backup to make sure that, we have something extra. And manpower is always a big challenge, especially these testing times when, as Om has just said, is that, everybody wants home collections, even for non-COVID. And COVID, of course, sometimes you have to do it because you're quarantined and you can't come out. And of course, other safety concerns. So obviously, there is a huge pressure as far as the demand for collecting from home is concerned. Even though we make a great capacity, for example, in the lab into centralized testing system, you still have to collect the sample from home, or you still have to, move the sample from one place to another place. And it requires a lot of coordination and a lot of manpower, which is definitely required to make sure that we are able to manage that kind of a high volume. So needless to say, I mean, there is no question, we are not sleeping in the night just to think about that. I hope we are not, there are not many people who are infected. Of course, we do create the safety standards, the PPE, protection, sanitization, the training, all those things are part and parcel of our lives, but we just can't avoid it. We know that, there will still be, some collateral damage as we move along, because we are right in the front of this invisible enemy, and we are the first ones to get exposed. So obviously, we do have those challenges. At least in wave 2, wave 1, we had plenty of challenges. Wave 2, we became better. I hope in the wave 3, we are even better. Having said that, we do have safety protocols. We do have extra safety protocols for our labs and from our phlebotomists, and how we, don or doff the PPE and many things like that. But yes, I mean, this is a worry factor which we need to really consider. And we do expect some kind of non-productive times when people are infected, yes.
No, in fact, these are the first line of defense in terms of frontline workers. So undoubtedly, they will be vulnerable, and the accuracy of RATs or home test kits are still not to that level where you can do without a confirming test. But we can only hope that the wave ebbs as fast as it is growing. Thank you so much to all of you for joining us on the discussion this evening.
Thank you, Dhamma. Thank you.
Thank you.